everything free of cost. I hope more people will be here as we progress through the evening. So thank you, for showing up. We really appreciate all of you being here. Because as I said, you could be anywhere else, but you choose to be here. And we appreciate it so, so much. So without much ado, Nadine, please come.
Thank you, Sister Anne Marie. Appreciate it. Thank you for the warm introduction. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Excellent. So maybe those who are on this side can join this side so that I have one point of direction, but it's fine. If you can't, it's okay. So today we're going to talk a little bit about something that has become really popular, actually. I can say popular because it's not popular in a good way, but it's popular in the sense that it has begun the discussion that has been well needed for so long. So we're going to talk a little bit about mental health, and we're going to talk about mental illnesses, and we're also going to discuss a little bit about support, because those are the things that we really need when those things are coming into play. Okay? And then we're going to have a little talking time where you and I can just talk, and you guys are going to ask the questions that you hope to ask, and I hope to give you the answers that you need. So today, the presentation is entitled Lean on Me. Lean on Me. Depression, as defined by the American Psychiatric Association, is a major depressive disorder. It's a serious or common serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. I'm sure at some point in time, each and every one of us has had an experience of extreme sadness. Let me see the hands. If you've ever been really sad, just put your hand up. Thank you. Me too. So depression is not really, really sad. It's a prolonged, extreme sadness. Does that make sense? Prolonged, extreme sadness. So who does it affect, right? It affects maybe 1 in 15 adults in any given year, and 1 in 6 people will experience depression at some time in their life. And it can occur at any time, but on average, it first appears during the late teens to the mid-20s. There's a high degree of heritability, which basically means that if your mom or their children or siblings have had depression, it's more than likely that you may experience a bout of it as well. And that's about 40% is the likelihood. Those are kind of high numbers, and so we know that it's no respecter of persons. I know a lot of times people say, you just have to make your mind strong. I don't think so. I think if we look back in the Bible, there is a text that says, Jesus wept. Remember that text? Jesus wept? Somebody tell me what Jesus was crying about. Does anybody remember? Ah, his friend Lazarus died. Can you imagine? His friend Lazarus died, and so Jesus wept. What is the significance of that? I don't know about you, but when I think about Jesus, he is God who spoke and it was. Not only did God who spoke and it was weep, not a normal cry, he wept. He wept about something that he was about to change. Do you guys remember that? He was about to go and resurrect Lazarus. So why weep? Why weep? I'm going to come back to that. Let's hold on to it. Okay, so some of the symptoms of depression is feeling sad or having a depressed mood, a loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, and changes in appetite, weight loss or gain that's not related to dieting. Trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, an increase in purposeless physical activity. So it's an inability to sit still, maybe pacing, hand wringing. You'll notice people who experience some level of depression, depending on how severe, they may talk very, very, very fast, or they could talk really, 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 really slow, right? And one of the criteria within the DSM-5 to diagnose it is it has to be noticeable by others. So that talking really, really fast or really, really slow has to be seen by others. Feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, thoughts of death or suicide. Okay, so just wanted to give everyone a brief overview of what depression sort of looks like and how it can look in certain instances. So remember I said we were going to get back to the Jesus wept story. Let's go back, right? So I'm going to say this. Our God is so awesome. When he created us with a built-in protective system. How many of you guys know what that built-in protective system is? Oh, y'all working today. Come on, y'all. What do you think it is? Take a wild guess. There's no wrong answers. Okay. Right. Our defense system, that's a very good one. It's very true, right? Because we have our amygdala, which is our fight, flight, freeze, right? That helps us to navigate danger. The simplest one in relation to this portion that I'm talking about is our emotions. Our emotions are there to protect us. I want everybody to say it with me. We're going to say it often today. Our emotions are there to protect us, right? So if you think about the little kid, and when the little kid is going towards the stove, and you're like, oh, don't touch that. And what do? They draw their hand back, right? After a while, they learn. Or maybe they don't, and they're super curious, and then they touch it, and they get burned, and then, right? So much so that we put on our gloves when we handle the stove or the oven or whatever the case is, because we remember that, oh, that was hot and it was painful. So our emotions are our built-in systems that God gave us. So my suggestion, I'm not God. My suggestion is that our thoughts affect the way that we feel, which affects what we do, right? Common principle based on CBT, and Anne-Marie is going to explain a little bit about that a little bit later. But our thoughts affect the way that we feel, which affects what I do. So if you're trying to change the feeling, where should we begin? Where do we begin? Thank you. Our thought, what? They got some scholars here. Scholars, I like that. Okay, we have to work on thought. We work on the thought, right? So if our thoughts affect the way that we feel, which affects what we do, when Jesus wept, what do you think his thought was? What is his thought? Not feeling, thought. What is the thought? Look at that. Sadness, disappointment, that's upset. Those are all feelings. We're looking for the thought. And this is important because I want to highlight how we can change those narratives. What might Jesus' thought have been? People around him are sad or hurt. That's a good likely thought. What other thoughts do you think? Let me hear from y'all. For sure. That, hands down, you're absolutely correct. Our feelings are controlling us, right? Remember, 100%, he was human and fully God. So his thought might be, my friend died, right? My friend died. Even now, if I think about a friend who may pass, automatically I'm beginning to feel sad, right? So even though he's God, he knows what he's about to do. He's about to change the narrative. He still weeps because his friend is gone. That's the thought. Okay, so why is it important for us to navigate those thoughts, feelings, behaviors? Because remember what I said before, we can't change anything unless we understand the thought. So you see how you guys were here and we were saying, yes, and he's sad and he's disappointed and all of those things, right? And the gentleman back there said, you know, he's got feelings, he's human. Sometimes we struggle with our thoughts. We struggle with them, right? And it depends on how we've been supported all along. What's happening in the world when you come home? I don't know about you guys. My mom, I'm originally from New York City. So every now and again, you'll hear a little New York Nadine come out. Don't worry, we put it back in the box. Every now and again. But originally, my parents from the West Indies, they're from Jamaica. So growing up, you know, when I did something and it wasn't too right, I might have had a moment or two. I might have. You know, my parents would, what are you doing? Why are you touching that? Stop it. And then after they gave you the hot slap, what did they say? What did they say? What are you crying for? You want something to cry for? Let me give it to you. Right? So, and you know, we can get into a history about all of that. That all has to do with systemic racism and also has to do with slavery and all of those things. We can get into all of that. But at the end of the day, it did something, right? It did something important that we need to remember. You see how we can talk about sad, mad, frustrated. It's hard for us to navigate the thoughts behind those things. We can associate the feelings, but we don't necessarily associate the thought. And that creates a lot of different issues, right? Because if I'm looking to change something, I need to know what I'm thinking. So maybe I'm thinking, because, you know, they're telling me, be quiet, don't touch, don't whatever. I might be thinking, I'm just not good enough. Whatever I do is just, I'm going to get in trouble, right? And so maybe that thought then begins to disrupt the way that I feel, because now I don't even know how I feel anymore. I just want all of this mess to stop. And as long as she doesn't take that belt back out, we're good. The minute she come back out here is going to be a problem. So I'm going to, remember those? You're crying so much you can't even control yourself. Right? You're trying to stop. Because remember, you can't control the scholars, you know. You can't control the feeling. You can only control the thought. Okay? All right, so we're doing really, really good. Let's move on from depression. I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety. So anxiety, as defined by the American Psychological Association, is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worry, thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. So it's not just what's in your head, but it's also what's physically happening to your body, right? So people with anxiety disorders usually have reoccurring intrusive thoughts or concerns that they may avoid certain situations out of worry. They may also have physical symptoms such as sweating, trembling, dizziness, or a rapid heartbeat. Anxiety is not the same as fear, but they are often used interchangeably. And that's something that's important to note, right? Anxiety and fear are two different things because our emotions are here to protect us, right? Our emotions are here to protect us. So every time I say that, I'm going to try to give you guys an example. When I go to cross the street, right? I look both ways. Why? Well, I don't want to get hit by a car. I'm concerned. I am fearful that that thing is bigger than me and it's speeding down the road, right? So I look before I leap. Was that right? So because our emotions are here to protect us, getting right back to that, anxiety and fear are different, very different. So anxiety is considered a future-oriented, long-lasting response, and it's broadly focused on a diffuse threat. The difference between that and fear is an appropriate present-oriented and short-lived response to a clearly identifiable and specific threat. So let's talk about anxiety for a minute. If I'm thinking about it, I know some friends, they get very anxious when they go around water. Very. And that's because they don't know how to swim. So what they might do is they'll be like, I can't swim. I don't want to get in the water today. You know, I'm okay. I'll just stay here where my feet are just, you know, just as far as I can go. But an anxiety would be, I'm in the shower and there's water and can I drown in the shower? Can I? No, I can't, right? So why is that? So that's an irrational fear, right? That's an anxiety because I can just stand up or get out of the shower. Very important to note. So now, when we get into managing persistent and problematic anxiety, it is to understand and target the components that keep the anxiety going, right? So managing anxiety involves reevaluating the threat, approaching and testing feared and avoided situations, and using de-arousal strategies to calm the body. So these strategies are often tailored according to the particular type of anxiety someone's experiencing. Okay? So let's say, for instance, now you have, I can use one, Ruth. She doesn't like dogs, not at all. She has a huge anxiety where dogs are concerned. And so someone who has that type of anxiety, we might do something that we call exposure therapy. And so exposure therapy would be the person sits down in a safe space or what have you, and then you bring in a dog. And the person is obviously going to start becoming very anxious in that type of situation. And we're going to gradually work with them to show them that this dog is not harmful. Right? We may bring them a little bit closer, may allow the dog to sit in the room for a little while. There are different methods in which we use in order to adjust that, right? So that's a little something about that. So now what I want to do is ask Anne-Marie to come up and help you guys understand how to better manage that anxiety and depression.
Excuse me for this in my mouth. I have a cough, so I don't want to be coughing all over the place. Courtesy of a kindergarten. So we look at depression, and one of the managing modalities for depression we use is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. What that means is we focus on it's like a circle. Think of a circle. It starts with situation, then it starts with thinking, your thoughts, and it looks at reaction, your feeling, and moving on to behavior. So what is the situation that's triggering now your thoughts, that's feeding into your negative thoughts, right? Once you can identify that situation that's causing that negative thought, what is that negative thought? Where is it? What is the process? What are you thinking of? For instance, with Ruth, I don't want the dog to bite me. Why do you say that the dog is behind in the house? The dog is behind a fence. Is that a rational behavior? Will the dog who's on a leash as a fence, how many feet I bite you, is that rational or irrational? So we work through the thoughts, and we generally use a thought record to look at the problematic thinking pattern, and once we move on to break down the thoughts into different aspect, is this rational, and work through the thoughts, the thinking process, we move on now to the reaction. What is the reaction? What are you feeling? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling like you need to get away from the situation? Isolation, behavior, run away when you hear that. So we work through the different compartments of CBT to let the individual deal with that irrational fear. CBT, as I said, is a very good aspect. Sometimes we have to use other modalities, but that's a general place to start with. Sometimes we do behavioral activation, meaning when the person is depressed. When we are depressed, we generally feel like, oh, I need to sit and stay here, or maybe wrap up in bed all day, or I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to go nowhere, I just want to be by myself. That doesn't help. It just wraps you up further and further into depression. The common thing, the best thing to do is do the opposite. I feel to be alone, do the opposite. Call some friend, get involved, go somewhere. So we look at the opposite, behavioral activation. So as I said, that's a couple modalities that we look at, connecting with others. People who are depressed tend to isolate themselves, even hide their problems from those who care about them. So it's important to fight this instinct to go it alone, to be it alone. And it's important to find your community of friends, find your family, because research has shown that people who have people in their corner, bad, so to speak, generally recover faster than someone who is isolated and alone. Research has shown it and proven it. Creating a change. Many people suffer from symptoms of depression throughout their lifetime, but this can be stopped. Of course, you can be sad and unhappy. We're human beings. All of us go through those phases for one reason or another, right? So first thing we have to realize that we are suffering. What is the cause of our suffering? And seek help. Help can come in many forms. It can come through your family members, through your friends, or if it's persistent and it's become pervasive, seeking a doctor or a therapist is generally recommended. And I move on to anxiety. Have I covered all the spot, or is there any blind spot there? We're good. All right. So I'm trying to go a little fast before my takes over. So anxiety, and I need to add also that some of these symptoms like depression and anxiety, they are generally comorbid. That means they like friends, right? They like friends. So for instance, a person suffering from grief, they are more easily to be depressed or anxious. Someone is going through other issues in life, loss of a job, um, any other thing that might happen to them as we go along this journey of life, these will itch onto the bandwagon and come along. So before you know it, you're depressed. And depression and anxiety love more company. So it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So, common, or is it control? Let me go down. To manage stress, it can be helpful to identify my stressors. Have stressors. Not one of us don't have stressors. We all have stressors. Is how we manage our stress. For me, my stressors are work. When I'm overworked, I am stressed. Right? So remember your stressors and work. So what do I need to do to not be so stressed? Probably take time off, probably get some help, someone to, thank you. So whatever our stresses, stressors are, we need to identify them. This Once we clearly identify the things that makes us feel stressed, we can focus our energies on how to problem solve or manage them. We may also need to reevaluate what coping resources we have available. As often we feel stressed, we underestimate the range of options available to us. When our body is under stress, it can be helpful to undertake activities that help us to calm and be relaxed. So some of the techniques that I find and I've used with many of my clients are body scanning, mindfulness, and something simple, deep breathing. Because before, you'll talk to them and we're going through and suddenly something triggers, flashback, whatever, anxiety take us a root. Easy way to calm and self-soothe, deep breathing. Follow the rhythm of your breath, right? Follow the rhythm of your breath. Or even, if you're able to, go for a walk. Everyone has different ways of calming themselves. Anyone? Can you tell me what's your way of calming yourself? I know for me, calming myself is going to sleep. That's my superpower. I fall asleep, boom. Anyone? Sleep. Good. So we're twins. Sleep. Anyone else? Go for a walk. Love that. Anyone else? Right, so as you see, one size doesn't fit all. We all have our different strategies and ways to cope. It's first thing, you have to recognize your stressors and then look at what you can do to calm you before you start spiraling. Because before you know, you can start spiraling out of control. And family members can be very useful at this time also. I want to pass this over. Did I miss anything?
Not a thing. Not a thing. So, guys, I love that. Some people said go for a walk. Some people said go to sleep. Anne-Marie said deep breathing. Some people, how many people watch a show? Nobody? I'm the only one? Okay, yeah. So definitely, you can definitely do that. Some of the other things you can do, it depends. Some people I'm going to introduce a new topic to you, which is outside versus inside processing. Outside processors, they got to talk it out. They have to talk it out, right? In order to process situations or instances, they're literally speaking and gaining an understanding as the words are coming out of their mouth. That's an outside processor. Inside processors, What they may do is something we call they internally process. So they need time away. They want to sit and really meditate on that thing for a minute, and then they'll come to a decision or an understanding. So for an outside processor, maybe they're going to do what? They're going to call a friend, right? And they're going to talk it out. The thing that gets disturbing about the outside versus inside processing, and I'm an outside processor, so the thing is, when I'm calling and I'm talking to you about it, it doesn't mean that I got it worked out. We're working it out while we speak. So if you give me the space, I might be able to figure this thing out all by myself, right? But internal processors, now let's say you meet, you know, the opposite end. Maybe your daughter or your husband or, you know, your mom, maybe they're an internal processor and you're an external. So that can be a bit problematic, right? Because the next thing you know, you're trying to process things the way you know how, and that may be problematic to your relationship because they might need space to process, right? So really important for you to begin to notice what kind of processor you are. Okay? So that was just an aside, and we're tacking that on to what Anne-Marie had to say, which was fantastic. So we're going to talk a little bit about emotional regulation and dysregulation. Emotional regulation and dysregulation. Somebody give me their best guess as to what that is. Best guess. Thank you, kind sir. I tell you, scholar. Exactly. It is how I'm able to control or manage my emotions, right? So the goal of emotional regulation is to reduce emotional suffering. Okay? The goal of emotional regulation is to reduce emotional suffering. The aim is not to get rid of the emotions. Let me be very clear. Again, remember little Nadine getting slapped, right? Little Nadine getting slapped, and then the parents saying what? Stop it. You want me to give you something to cry for? Right? So it's not to get rid of the emotion, because emotions have important functions in our lives. Our emotions, guys, are there to protect us. Yes. Say it with me. Our emotions are here to protect us. Okay? They're here to protect us. They have a very important job. So emotional regulation skills help you to change emotions that you, not other people, want to change, or to reduce the intensity of your emotion. I don't know about you. Like I said, that little kid who you're telling to stop crying, and they're trying so hard to control that emotion. It has become distressing to them, right? So the key piece is not to try to control that emotion. You can't get rid of it. It is to manage what you're feeling at that given point in time, okay? So emotions are a protection. Emotions motivate and organize us for action, okay? If something were to happen outside and, you know, I think of one of my cousins, and she would say, you know, like when, oh my, the name is escaping me, but let's say something really terrible happened within our community. She would say, in Jamaica, Nadine, you know what we would do? Burn tire in the road. We're burning tire everywhere, right? Because they want to galvanize what? That emotion of upset. We're trying to get back our respect, right? So that's the fight part of it. And then, so our behavior is, our behavior is motivated by our emotions. Action urges are often found in biology, okay? It's within us. Emotions save time in getting us to act in important situations. Emotions can be especially important when we don't have time to think things through, okay? So if you think about it, and you know, you guys must have observed a little kid somewhere jumping and hopping on the bed, and you're standing there, and the minute they almost keen over, what are you gonna do? Do you gonna say, well, what should I do? Should I reach my left hand over? Or maybe I should run around the other side and try to get a pillow? You're just gonna react, right? That emotion of fear is like, oh, she's gonna drop, I'm gonna grab you. So those are the things that they do. Strong emotions help us to overcome obstacles in our minds and in our environment. Very important. Strong emotions help us to overcome obstacles in our mind and in our environment. Why are we talking about that? Why are we talking about our emotions and the protection thereof and so forth? What emotion do you think was acceptable growing up for you to have? Growing up, what emotion was acceptable for you to have? Crying. Awesome. So sadness, for sure. Trauma is an experience, not necessarily an emotion. So are we talking about, trying to think of an actual emotion word for trauma would be distress, like an extreme distress, maybe? Yeah, that was okay to have. What other emotions might have been okay to have? Grief, for sure. You could be sad about someone. Say again? Angry. Compassion. Yes, that's a good one. Say again? Anxiety or fear. Happiness. Oh my goodness, I thought nobody was going to say happy. I was about to say nobody was allowed to be happy. What in the world? They didn't let y'all outside to play? Okay, happiness, right? Have you ever seen a movie called Inside Out? Inside Out? Ah. It is a phenomenal movie. That's your homework. All of you, go home and watch Inside Out tonight after sunset. Right? Inside Out is a phenomenal movie. And it's actually made by some really smart people over at Harvard. And they had an input into Disney's production of it. But in Inside Out, it highlights or showcases, I believe it's 5 emotions. I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it's 5. You've got our friend Joy. You have sadness. You have fear. You've got anger. And they introduced the pretty girl in green, disgust. Disgust, right? And in that show, it highlights how our emotions really play a significant role in how we interact with one another. I want you guys to go home and really, I mean it, watch it. Watch it with a friend and really begin to observe. And then you can start to think about what happens, and I'm giving you, this is a trick question. I'll even leave my email. You can give me the answer. What happens when you put an emotion in the chalk circle? See, now, if you didn't watch the movie, you won't know what I'm talking about. So you have to go home and see it and then see what happens when you draw a chalk circle and you tell that emotion to stay put. Okay? So somebody remind me, I'll give my email. So regulating our emotions. Emotional regulation skills can also reduce your vulnerability to becoming extremely or painfully emotional and increase your emotional resilience. Emotions can be very painful, guys. Even the good ones. Do you agree? Has someone ever tickled you and you've laughed and laughed and laughed until like you feel sick, you feel horrible, right? So any emotion in its extreme is very painful. That is how, isn't God amazing? How he designed us? It's crazy. So emotional regulation requires a use of mindfulness skills, which is particularly a non-judgmental observation and description of your own current emotions. I want to talk about mindfulness for a second because we as Christians, I think we have the wrong rap, or we give mindfulness a bad rap because we see it out in the world and we're not really sure what's happening and so forth. Christians been doing mindfulness from day one. Day one. God is mindful. God is mindful. Because God sat back there, he created the world, and he says something that's amazing in Genesis. He sits back after he's done creating, and he said, "And the evening and the morning was the first day." And he sat back and he said, "And it is what? It is good." God was mindful. He sat back on his celestial throne and observed all that was and is that he made, and he gave it a designation. It is good. We are giving mindfulness a bad rap. To be mindful is to sit in a non-judgmental observation of where we are. That's it, pretty much, in a nutshell. I'm not going to go through a mindfulness technique, but I will do some other things, which, I think that you'll enjoy, I hope, and show you how to regulate some of those harder emotions. So it's important, and I'm gonna take a minute here and say it's important to know what an emotion is and what it does for you before you can effectively regulate or control it. Super important. And you'll see the differences when I ask. I'm like, "Oh, okay, so what are the thoughts?" And people give you emotions, right? And then I may say, "Well, how do you feel about that?" In session, that is my favorite word. I'm like, "Okay, somebody's gonna come, they're gonna tell me something horrible, and I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna say, okay, so what are your feelings toward that?" Feelings? I don't know. What's that? I mean, it just is what it is, Or they'll say, "I feel that person should have done this differently or done that differently." I feel without an emotion word behind it means that you're struggling to identify how you feel. You need to spend time with that, and that's what mindfulness does, right? It creates space for you to understand and know how you are feeling in the moment. I'm going to go back to it. Emotions are there to protect us. So at the end of the day, if there is an extreme emotion happening, I want to ask myself, what am I feeling? And why? And then that will help me to manage the emotion. How does that work? Okay, so let's say we're in Montreal. We're in Montreal, we're going on the train, okay? Minding our own business, we're on the platform. Here comes this guy, he's got his hoodie on, pants are hanging low, he's rolling up, he's looking real, like, what's going on, right? And now he's spotted you, and he's coming your way. Guys, how do you feel? Okay. Nervous. Okay. How do you feel? Frightened. So what are you going to do? Because thoughts, feelings, behavior. You said you feel frightened. So what might you do? Run. Take off. I hear you. And what else? What might someone else do? Stay away from him. If it's me, your girl ain't got no more running in her. It's over. So she'll just be one of those, she just try to blend in with the wood. Maybe they won't see me. I'm the freeze. That's me all day, every day, right? So the fight, flight, freeze takes over. And then now the guy, he comes up on you fast, and he says, oh my gosh, I don't know where my mom is. She was just standing right here, and the next thing you know, I didn't see her get on the train. I don't know where she is. Did you see what she looks like? Help me, please. How do you feel? But how do you feel now that you know why he's coming? Relieved, concerned. How do you guys feel? Sympathetic, right? Somebody want to help him, right? Now I'm looking for his mama. I'm like, where's she at? Did she jump? Lord, have mercy. Please. Where she went? So you see, and I'll say this, feelings aren't facts. Feelings aren't facts. And this is the difference. This is the game changer for anxiety, depression, and all of those stronger mental health challenges. Feelings aren't facts. We have to check the thought. We've got to check the thought. So yes, our emotions are there to protect us, but they aren't facts. Right? So being able to discern what is the thought changes the feeling. So you see now that the guy came up and he expressed himself, and you're like, shoot, oh man, I'm so sorry, sir. Okay, let's go help. Let me help you find your mom. I apologize. I thought you was gonna hurt me. I was about to stab you. I don't even know what's going on. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I even thought about those things. But I was so scared in that moment, I didn't know what to do. So these are the things that happen to us that we need to learn to manage. And this is where the big emotional regulation pieces come in, okay? So right now, what I want you guys to do, I want to introduce some emotional regulation techniques for you. Just a second. So I know some people expressed being able to take a deep breath. So I'm going to teach you 3 breaths today. Who's ready to learn the 3 breaths? Awesome. So we're going to rehearse. So I want you to pick. I'm going to read 2, and you're going to pick which one you want to do, okay? And if you're doing number 1, then I'm going to ask you to stand and do it with me. And if you're going to do number 2, then I'll ask you to stand afterwards and do it with me. And there's a reason why, because each breath controls different things, right? So I want to see which one really works. I want you guys to try it out. See which one works for you, okay? And everybody knows it's hard to breathe sitting down. You can't even sing sitting down half the time. Again, Nadine is still, hiding on the wall, but everybody else, we can all stand and make it work. Okay, so we'll try the falling out breath. I have the falling out, the box breath, and the emptying breath. Falling out, box breath, emptying breath. So those of you who want to try, I'll tell you what they are first. Sorry. So the falling out breath releases physical tension in the body. The falling out breath releases physical tension in the body. And the box breath is for your mind. It's for your mind. Emptying breath is for yourself. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system and calms that parasympathetic nervous system down. This is to help the body to take it down a notch, right? So whatever emotions, feelings, so forth you haven't, it's to lower them. Okay? So who's doing my emptying breath? Let's try that one first. Okay. All right. Just stand up so I know you're in. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to do it together. Okay? Read it first, do it together. So we're going to inhale to the count of 3, and then we're going to exhale slowly to the count of 6. And at that exhale, we're releasing as much breath as possible. Okay? So we're going to inhale to the count of 3, exhale slowly to the count of 6, releasing as much air as possible. So the first time I'm going to count you through. Okay? So, and inhale on 1, 2, 3, inhale. Hold it. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Let's try that one more time. Inhale. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How's that feel? Okay. What about my peeps in the back? How was it? It was good? Okay. All right, guys. You guys can sit. We're going to try something else. Who wants to try the falling out breath? That releases physical tension in the body. Who's going to try that one? Falling out. Awesome. All right, we're ready. Going to try the falling. Let me read it to you first. Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath in. We're filling our lungs as much as possible. And at the top of your breath, I'll demonstrate. I want you to take one more sip of air. And then we're going to exhale with a big out loud sigh. That sounds something like, ah. Okay? So, on 3. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. Ah. I'm not going to lie, that's my favorite. So let's try it one more time. Ready? So remember that the sip is the thing that catches you. You got to catch the sip, okay? So inhale, 1, 2, 3. How was it, guys? That was not for you. I got you. The extra sip was a rough one. I hear you. What about you guys? What'd you think? It was good? All right. So that means everybody else is standing now. So everybody else is standing. We're doing the box breath. This one's for your mind, right? This is going to increase our mindfulness. So we're going to inhale to the count of 4. And then we're going to hold our breath at the top to the count of 4. And then we're going to exhale to the count of 4. Hold our breath on the bottom to the count of 4. It's a lot of work. All right, let me say it again. Ready? So we're inhaling to the count of 4. Then we're going to hold at the top of that breath for 4. So 4 is a magic number, okay? Then we're going to exhale to the count of 4. And we're going to hold our breath at the bottom for 4. Then you can just release. Okay? So, and on 3, 1, 2, 3. Inhale. Was that one hard? Okay, let's try it again. Ready, ready, ready? So, inhale to 4. And 1, 2, 3. 4, 4, 4, 4. How you feeling? Feels good? Ah, excellent. Loved it. Right? So that's one way that we can emotionally regulate. When we're getting, really wound up over something, and you don't have to, let me say this, you don't have to have a mental illness to utilize any of these techniques. This is everyday stuff that we can learn to help us to just be better humans. Better humans, right? So that's one way. I'm going to teach you guys another grounding technique. One of my favorites. Love this one. Do it with my clients all the time. And I love doing it in the midst of them telling me something crazy. I absolutely love it. And and then we went down, and then he did it, and then it was, and I'm like, okay, can you do me a favor? And they're like, yes. I'm like, can you tell me 5 red things? They're like, what? I need 5 things. So this is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So tell me 5 things you see with you in the room. 5 things. Oh. All right. We got our 5. We're doing it as a team. Sounds good. Let's get it. Now, 4 things you can feel. 4 things you can feel. Heartbeat. Love it. Okay. 3 things you can hear. Ah. I heard you. I got you. That was our 3. 2 things you can smell. Ah, okay. And nothing. Now I want every single one of you to do this. Name 1 good thing about yourself. Blessed, awesome, kind, caring, lovely. What else? I didn't hear you. You're breathing. 1 good thing. Who didn't I hear from? Blessed. Anybody else? Say it again. You can see. Amazing. How you feel? Good. So those are just some simple things that you can do to help stay present. Right? To help stay present. You know how the Bible talks about, listen, don't worry about tomorrow. Because today has what? Enough troubles. Right? So we know we had the truth from time. They just catching up. right? Society is just catching up because we already had it. It was already there. All right. So these are some techniques I also want you guys to use, because some people, remember we talked about this inside and outside processing. So here I'm going to talk about some grounding techniques that I think that works very well, that you can utilize and you can start to say and do within your own homes and your own spaces, in your cars, in your alone time, your in-between time. Tell your friends, your sisters, your cousins, your uncles, your brothers, everybody. Because everyone can use a little happiness. Not true? You think? Okay. So one good grounding thing to say is, this situation won't last forever. Say it with me. This situation won't last forever. It won't. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter. It's never going to last forever. Right? This too shall pass. This too shall pass. I can ride this out and not let it get me down. I can ride this out and not let it get me down. That's a good one. My anxiety, fear, sadness won't kill me. It just doesn't feel good right now. Right? My anxiety, fear, sadness won't kill me. It just doesn't feel good right now. And I want to add something. I always tell my clients this, and I will say it to you. If you are experiencing any of these mental illnesses, they are not you. They're not you. This is something that is happening to you. So it's not a teddy bear. We're not holding on to it. Oh, my anxiety. Nah, that's not mine. This anxiety, right? This depression, this bipolar, this whatever it is, right? Won't kill me. It just doesn't feel good right now. Okay? Last one. And then we're going to move on, which is, these are just my feelings, and eventually they'll go away. These are just my feelings, and eventually they'll go away. And why is that, guys? We talked about it before, right? When we were in the train station, remember when we were visualizing that whole train thing? Feelings aren't facts. They're not facts. Okay? So, something I have to talk about, because a lot of us, as I said, the narrative is changing, right? And this has become very prevalent. And it's not because it didn't exist. It's just because we're learning to talk about it more, right? That's changing. So as you'll see, like your grandkids or your children or their friends or your friends or what have you, they'll start to come and they'll start to talk a little bit more, because the narrative is changing. The things we talk about, are changing. So we want to make sure that we're moving with the times. What do you think? We got to move with the times, right? So moving with the times means I need to adjust. And the things that I need to adjust, I can't wait for you to adjust. I've got to do it myself. And that is, I'm going to adjust and make sure I have supportive behavior. Supportive behavior. And who needs support? And perfect timing. Who needs support and perfect timing? So supportive behavior includes and involves responding appropriately to those around you. And that doesn't only extend to difficult periods in life, but also to celebrations and everyday events that are important to others. I find that in this era, especially post-COVID, I don't even know if it's post, because honestly, I don't even know. I think it's still here, but whatever. We're learning to manage, right? In this time, we have recognized, do you know how many people have missed so many very important events?
We weren't there to see this baby born. We don't remember whose baby it is, who kid name is what. We don't know any of that stuff. We missed this one graduating. I don't know about you guys, but when church reopened, it was crazy. All of a sudden, we just saw people and everyone was grown. Did you guys see that? Everyone was big. The little kid that you left, they're like, oh, I'm graduating. What? You're like 5. What are you talking about? So I just want to say hi to my peoples. That's my family there who just came to support me. I appreciate you guys. So, and with that, I want you to start to think about those big accomplishments, right? Think back to how when you had an accomplishment, whatever it was, maybe it was graduation, it was, I don't know, like maybe you got married or maybe you got a promotion, whatever it was, you bought a home. How did it feel? How did it feel when you were there? Were you alone? Or were you with someone? And how did it feel when you were alone, if you were? And how did it feel when someone was with you? How did that feel? So I don't know about you, I've got dreams, lots of dreams. Some of them is, I'm gonna start to make some big money. Big money, I'm telling you. Y'all wanna ride this coat wave, because trust me, it's gonna happen. But my thing is, I started thinking and dreaming and planning, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go on this cruise, I'm gonna go on this, whatever. And then I was like, but it's great if I got the money to go, but if nobody else can come with me, it's whack. What point is it, right? So now that made me, man, pray for me. It makes me want to work even harder because now I got to bring all of these jokers. You see what I'm saying? It's a problem. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have to think about what does it feel like when you have somebody with you and when you don't. And that's important because that's what some of the people who are experiencing depression, anxiety, and other even larger mental health challenges are dealing with. They feel very alone. So we want to build our muscle of empathy. What do you think? Is that a good way to build it? Think about what it's like when you're where you want to be. Okay. So the other thing that's important to note, it's also going to set the tone for your self-talk, right? And your well-being in terms of your emotional health. Your self-talk and your well-being. So supportive behavior is not necessarily for those experiencing difficulty. It's also for being there in good times and bad times. And it's also being there for yourself. You got to be there for you. How can we encourage somebody else if we can't encourage ourselves? How do we do that? Is it going to be effective? Think it'll work out well? I think it might be a problem. So who needs support? Everyone, right? Including us. And we begin with self, because if my cup is empty, this is my number one analogy. If I have a cup and you and I are both in the desert and we're walking, and I'm so thirsty, and I reach for my cup, and let's say now you have passed out, you're on the floor, you're like, please, I need some water. And what am I going to give you? I'm going to share my cup, but nothing's in it. What happens, right? When nothing is in it? Oh, man, it's a mess. How can I share it with you? You ever seen like how moms will give away all their food and all this stuff? You know, but then what happens when mom runs out of energy and she can't even garner the food anymore to give away? You got to take care of self. Very important. Okay? So when we struggle to discern our own needs or we overly focus on the needs of others, we have actually missed the mark. We can't expect to understand or empathize when we've not cultivated an attitude of understanding for self. I cannot empathize with you when I can't even discern what is happening with me. Okay? So literally, charity begins at home, right? Get in touch with who you are and what your needs might be, which will help you to be curious about someone else's needs. And then you can begin to provide a modicum of care for them. That's right. Perfect. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better. So, perfect timing. Perfect timing is always, it's about always being, it's very important for you to ask yourself, who benefits from my assistance? Who is going to benefit from my assistance? Right? Remove yourself from the distractions and be honest about your own limitations to assist. Be honest about your own limitations to assist. If you are not a psychotherapist and someone calls you and says, hey, listen, I don't want to be here anymore, and this is what I'm going to do, and they start to describe the things that they're going to do, right? I want you to go there and call 911. This is out of your wheelhouse, right? And supporting and caring behavior is knowing your limitations. Does that make sense? Okay. So, many times we're not equipped to deal with certain issues that we might be facing, but we can be a great resource if we seek out help for someone as we cognitively remember what those limitations are, right? I love that. I have a lot of my friends who are pastors who will say, Nadine, can you see X, Y, Z? Because this is not my wheelhouse. And that's really important. It's important to know when something is beyond you. Okay? All right. So I want to talk a little bit about not supportive responses. Not supportive responses, okay? But before we do it, I want to talk a little bit about how culture has cultivated these not supportive responses. So many of us did not come from supportive homes, especially not by today's standards. Many people immigrated to this country and have had little experience with support, and so they've had to develop support systems on their own and define what supportive for them is. But that's usually based on their own experiences and their individual needs. That colors the way that we raise our children and interact with our families, our friends, our coworkers, and acquaintances. It's really important to note that support for me looks very different than support for you. And if I'm honest with myself and I want to be supportive and empathetic and kind, then I've got to recognize that I may not know how you need me to be supportive. Does that make sense? You need it again? All right. So, because, some of us, when we came here, there wasn't anybody here. It was just us, right? And so maybe you latched on to a church, right? And so support for you was making sure that you had somewhere to go and see people who looked like you each week. For other people, maybe they came and they already had family that was here. And so the family that was here, they helped them, they gave them a place to live, maybe they, were able to give them a little change and so forth. And so support for them might look like giving, right? and a shelter and so forth. But for a person who's never had any of those things, support could just be, hi, how you doing? And that might be supportive for them because they've never had anyone say hi or smile, right? So being able to be curious about the ways in which you feel supported helps you to become more curious about how others might need you to be supportive. Does that make sense? Right? Because then I want to say, you know what? When I came here, I couldn't work for and I'm an American. I couldn't work for almost 2 years. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't go to school, couldn't do anything. And I had finished school, actually, and still couldn't do or get anything, right? It took a while. So support for me was like being able to have somebody to go outside with, to talk to take me out different places, show me around town, right? But for somebody else, it might be, hey, listen, I need money. I need a job. You got something under the table? What do you got? Help me out with that. So being curious when you see that person and not assuming that, hey, you know what? I needed somebody to take me out. So I'm going to take this person out. Hey, listen, you want to come to the movies with me, or we can do whatever together, maybe go out to dinner. I'm just going to be curious. Hey, I noticed that you just came here. What did you need? How are things? Is there anything that I can do to help? Right? So those might be ways in which we can engage and be empathetic to others, but not impose our own personal views and values on them. Does that make sense? Okay. So here are the common non-supportive responses that we generally hear. Some are minimizing or dismissive. So we might hear, this is a common one. Oh, she called me an ugly frog. So what? It's just words. Who cares? It's just words. Let it go. What's the big deal? That's a minimizing or dismissive response because obviously our feelings are there to protect us. So if they say, they called me an ugly frog, that's important to them. And it hurts, right? So saying that isn't something to be upset about, right? So they hurt your feelings. It's no big deal. Or another dismissive comment that sometimes we use, and I'm guilty. Let's not get it twisted. I'm guilty. Learning is key. We're learning together, folks, right? Oh, like when someone tells you something that's terrible that's happened to them, and you're like, oh, but you're an amazing planner. Or you have so many friends. Or don't you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Right? You have a great job. You've got so many things going for you. That is a not supportive comment because the thing that's happening to them is very real and it's very important to them. So we want to be able to understand it from their perspective, right? Excusing or distracting, right? He didn't mean it. Or they didn't know what they were saying. They're just upset. Don't listen to them. Excellent, right? Oh, you know what? They're going through some rough times right now. It's so stressful for them. So what about me? And what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. Is it not stressful? Is it not important? Everyone's feelings are important. They're not facts, right? But they're important. Remember, that's the thing that we can't control. So some of the other ones might be, cheer up. This is the best time of your life. I'm not going to lie. I tell my children this all the time. I'm like, wait till you get to be my age. You have no idea. Life didn't hit you yet. But those things are dismissive, right? And I began to understand when my daughter was in the midst of her finals for university. Praise God, she's done. But saying those things negated the fact that I'm in the midst of this storm right now, and I cannot see my way through. Have you guys ever been in a storm? And it feels like you can't see where it ends. I don't know if you've been on the highway, and then like, you know, you gotta put on the hazards and kind of pull over because it feels like this is terrible. I can't see right in front of me, right? That's how that might be emotionally. Last but not least is, oh, you don't mean that. You don't mean that. Or I never had an issue with that. Or the kiss of death, your problems are stressing me out. Right? You're stressing me out. I can't deal with you right now. Or that's not a big deal for me. So those are some of the things that we have said in the past. And so we want to be able to manage our words and make sure that we are also quite supportive to those around us. So some supportive responses might be, I am sorry. I am so sorry that this is what you're experiencing. Or I'm here for you. Or how can I help? How can I help? Or do you want to talk about something else? Because sometimes it's really difficult to keep talking about your problems with every single person you meet, right? So maybe that person needs a break. Okay? This must be really hard for you. I'm worried about your struggling. I'm worried about your struggling. Or, my personal favorite, silence. When you watch that movie, Inside Out, you watch how sadness uses that silence. Very powerful. Sometimes you just need somebody to sit with you. Just sit with you in the grief. Sit with you in the distress. Sit with you. Just knowing someone else is there is enough. They don't have to fix it. Okay, so now here's the part that you guys get to tell me all of the supportive behaviors, because I need more. You know, I don't have the handle on all of it. So I definitely need more. So tell me what some of the supportive behaviors that you can exhibit to somebody who may be struggling, or, as we said, who is celebrating. Of course, active listening. And what did you say, sorry? You can count on me. I love that. Mm-hmm. Hey. Just show up. Hey. Always. Showing up. You can count on me. Active listening. Any others? Let go and let God. That one is a little bit tricky. Remember what we were talking about with the minimizing and the dismissing, right? So I think that sometimes as Christians, and make no mistake, I believe that God is in control. And I believe wholeheartedly that he has that plan, and he is working it out for our good. But like Job, we can't see it, right? And if you note, Job, he didn't curse God. He cursed his own he was like, what is this? What kind of life? What kind of life? So sometimes when we utilize some particular Bible verses or, colloquialisms, did I say that word right? I think so, I hope. We might be dismissing their feelings, right? Definitely. Definitely. So those are some of the things we might want to say, for sure. Any other actions? Words? Showing up. I like that. Dinner, what have you. Yes, definitely. 100%. Giving them a phone call. Yes. And asking, would that be helpful? Would that be helpful? Can I pray with you? Would that be okay? And let them say, right? Because for that person, they will know whether or not that would be helpful, right? So definitely asking them that, 100%. So here are some of my actions that I'm going to tell you guys, and it's, I already said, take care of yourself, right? Don't give me your empty cup. That can't help me. I do not want your dregs. I'm not lying. Like you drink the tea and then a little dregs in the bottom. I don't want that. I need liquid. I need nourishment. So make sure that you're good, right? You're well fed and ready to assist me. Sit with and listen to the person without offering advice or solutions. Many of you said that. Excellent. This is my number one thing. I'll say it 100 times. Be curious. Curious. Support looks different. It depends on the person. So be curious about what it is they need. Show up. Ask for help from someone who's knowledgeable in that particular area. Clarify what they need to feel better. And more importantly, be in the know. If you don't understand something, go and seek the information about it. And ask that person what those things mean to them. Okay? Those are some of the supportive behaviors. So, go ahead. Yes, to some degree. It depends on what the distraction is, but yes, to some degree. And distraction could be something as simple as, hey, let's go take a walk, right? Let's go outside, right? And again, it just, always just being curious when you are doing those things to ask what would be helpful, right? For sure, and that's what, it falls in line with the same thing that I said prior, which was that sometimes people don't really want to talk about their problems 24 hours a day. They need a break. Remember that emotional regulation piece, right? Our feelings, especially intensely felt, they can be very painful. So I need to relieve that, right? So I do have some resources here. You can always email me. I will leave my email address with Anne-Marie. Mm-hmm. Right. Go ahead. Right. 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 For that person, it sounds like she's looking for somebody to water her, you know? She's looking for somebody, if she had brought her maybe a drink, she might have been appreciative, right? So that's the key piece. It's about making sure that you are being intentional with your words, and that means being curious. Not because I like a plant. I know I cultivated a love for plants and flowers and things like that during the pandemic. I felt limited, like our growth was limited. And seeing the plant, taking care of it, allowed me to feel as though I was a part of something bigger, right? But that was me. When I called my mother-in-law, I was like, hey, do you want it? She's like, no, I don't want that. No, thank you. Right? Because everyone is different. So being intentional about our asking. Being intentional about our asking is very important. So specific questions, comments, I'm open. Do you have any? For sure.
So one thing I know is that everybody has a different love language, and the thing speaks different to different persons. So some persons are consoled by words, some are consoled by gifts, some does not like gift no matter the situation. So there are four love languages, and gift was not hers.
True. Very true. Gifts was definitely not a part of hers. Anybody else? Comments, concerns, questions? That's another important point. We want to make sure that you know it's much harder, but it's nice if you were to get Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. Gary Chapman's book, really great book. And it's not just for you and your partner, but it can be for you and your children. It applies to everyone. Everyone's love language is quite different, right? And of course, we love each other in our own language. Isn't that crazy? Like if I went to, let's say someone was here from another country and they came to me and they're like, Nadine, ¿qué es lo que pasa contigo? ¿Qué fue? And I'm like, what? I don't know. I have no idea what you're saying. But that's literally the difference between love languages. It is a language that you don't speak. It's not yours. So you have to teach the person how to love you. And again, be curious. What do you need? What can I do for you? So that's the presentation. Say that again. Of course. And how do you do that? I want to take you back with me. Remember what I said. What doesn't Nadine want from your cup? I don't want the dregs, right? So if you're asking, what do I need? And you've only got dregs in your cup, don't ask, man, because I don't want that, right? And that's how you make sure that you can supply the need. You've got to make sure your cup is full. Make sure it's some good chocolate tea, the one with the grater. Them with it. All right. Make sure. You can, if you are in a space of need, it will be difficult for you to supply Very difficult, right? It's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult because you're not going to really be able to help me the way I need you to,
Well,
right?
but you can find the source. I mean, it don't necessarily have to come from me, but there might be someone else you know that have those resources.
Of course. But if I'm in a space of need, am I going to go and be like, hey, Anne-Marie, I know somebody who really needs some help. I'm in a space of need, so I'm going to be one of these dismissive. It's not even that serious. What's her problem? Whatever. Get over it. Right? Because I'm in a space of need. But if my cup is full, then I can say, you know what? I don't know, but let me find out for you. I'm going to ask somebody. Right? Right. Did you need a mic?
But you see, using a mic could assist others to hear what she's saying and learn from her.
Would you like to take the mic? Would that be okay?
Yes, as I said, you could be observant, you know, by looking at the person's appearance to see if you could try to figure out if they're in need of clothes or if they're in a pair of shoes, and say, you know, could I take you shopping? Couldn't you ask that by observing instead of going, so you look so, you have clothes? You know, you could be observant and just say, could I take you shopping?
Still too fast. Develop a relationship first.
Yeah, yes.
First I say, can I take you shopping as well?
No, you're talking.
You don't ask that person.
No, I'm not talking about just see a person on the street and ask them that. You know, no. Have a friend, you know, if you see observe them, and if you see something wrong, you could approach them in different ways and just forcing on to say, what did you wear, or, you know?
Yeah, I can definitely understand what you're saying with that. And I agree. Definitely developing the relationship. And again, it's that space of curiosity. And I think it's also just really being open to being intentional about listening, right? Because our experience is different. Maybe that person really likes their tear-up shirt, right? That tear-up shirt is their favorite. It reminds them of mom, dad, a sister, cousin, whatever. And then here I come talking about, you know, sister, your shirt tear up, my girl. Let me help you, right? And that might be disrespectful to them. So we want to always be mindful that our experience is not theirs, right? And just being kind in the way that we are. Listen, I know we talk a lot about, you know, Christians, and we can be very flippant or dismissive in certain senses. But I know a lot of Christian, they're just really kind-hearted people, right? And they really mean well. So if we draw from that well, oh man, it makes me think of Jesus. Jesus at the well, and the woman comes. He's like, do you want a drink? Do you want a drink? He knows her story, but he's asking, what does she need? Go ahead. One second, just because we want everyone to hear you. Would that be okay?
Okay.
Sometimes I don't call because it hurts me more. I think it hurts me more than the person is hurting. Because I feel like I hurt more. I don't know. Okay, one time I had a friend. Her mom died, and she was consoling me. So it's like I'm protecting myself by not calling you. If you understand what I mean.
Completely, right? And that's a process that we call differentiation. Differentiation. I've got to own my feelings and allow you to own yours, right? And taking on your pain and my pain, right? That's really hard. So that's when we're going to turn to can you do me a favor and tell me 5 blue things in the room? Can you tell me 5 blue things? All right. 5 blue things. What are the 4 things that you can feel right now? Mm-hmm. What physical thing can you feel right now? Mm-hmm. Ah, you find a knee. Uh-huh. What else? What else? Mm-hmm. Ah, your heartbeat. Excellent. Give me 2 more. Maybe we can feel our breath. Yes, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. One more. One more thing you can feel. Good one. Good one. 3 things you can hear. 3 things you can hear. My voice. Mm-hmm. Equipment sound. Okay, awesome. 2 things. Mm-hmm. So, tell me the one good thing about yourself. Very kind. Amazing. And I think you're very kind too. Thank you. And that's how you do it, right? You bring yourself back to 1. Okay? And that will help to clear the space. All right, guys, you've been so amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to come and share with you all. And if you need any help or anything further,
Email address, please.
the email address I will send to you. So
Okay.
it's metanoeocounselingservices@gmail.com. metanoeocounselingservices@gmail.com. So it's METANOEO counseling, COUNSELLINGS, services, SERVICES, @gmail.com. Okay? And I'll also leave it with Emery, and she's here with you. Guys, thank you again. I appreciate this time with you.
I just want to say a warm, warm thank you to Nadine. She's indeed my sister, not only my colleague. We went to the same training place. We did our practicum there, and from then on, years ago, we have been friends, and we are continuing this growth of health and healing. So, but we both have our separate agencies where we counseling agency, and Nadine is a marriage family therapist, and one of the things I asked her, tell me a little bit that you want them to know. Her passion is to make marriage exceptional. Isn't that awesome? Passion is to make marriage exceptional. So I really want us to really, really give a real another big, because,
Thank you.
and she came. We had another, we're supposed to have another person come in, but some scheduling problem, and Nadine jumping within a week's notice. That's how awesome she is. Within a week's notice, she put together materials, and that's how awesome she really is. So when I say she really shows up, she does show up. Brother Bob, could you come forward and say a word of prayer? And I know we are way over time, but weren't we blessed? Weren't we blessed? Wasn't it worth this? Okay, so we apologize for the persons who are waiting, but we are glad that we were able to facilitate the program with Nadine. And I'm sure that those online and those who are here, we have some takeaway how to regulate ourselves, because we all go through issues. There's not one of us can say that life will not bring storms. If it has not already, wait for it.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. I got one. Let's stand together. We've been sitting all afternoon, or to the program. Let's pray. Father, we just want to thank you for the opportunity this afternoon just to connect with our sister Nadine, talk about mental health. We knew that all of us gained something from this presentation. And Lord, just please help us to put into practice what we have learned today. And I ask, Lord, that you'll bless not only every one of us in this house, but bless Sister Nadine and her family, and Sister Armstrong and her family, and continue to help them to work in this area to uplift your name. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.